All right, hi everybody. Hi, the men of the Center for Health and Well-Being. So, Oneida, have a seat, and so welcome everybody. So this is Food is Medicine, Cooking for Prostate Health. And look, we got a full house, and we were very nervous because men don't want to talk about their health. Men don't want to talk about what they should do. So we have stacked the room with some homers, our 4 men that we work here with, and a couple other folks that care about the men in their lives. And as you're going to find throughout this, these lessons apply to everybody in their life, so not just the men. So it'll be good for your whole family. So a couple housekeeping items for those of you at home. Feel free to use the chat to ask your questions. We'll also be dropping some links in there throughout the program. And at the end of it, everybody will receive a link to this entire program, so share it with the people in your life who weren't brave enough to come in here today, and send it around. So we've got 2 wonderful experts. First, those of you know Allison Harrell. She's here all the time. She's our best. She's a culinary medicine specialist and a registered dietitian. In just a moment, she's going to tell you what today's menu is, and throughout the day, she's not only going to tell you how these foods interact with your health, but she's going to share always some good kitchen gadgets. Everyone's going to leave with a full shopping list at the end. And here, for the first time in the Center for Health and Wellbeing, we got Dr. Justin Emtage. He's a urologist with Advent Health Medical Group, our partners in this building and our partners in this program. He went to Boston University School of Medicine, and then he did his internship and residency at the University of South Florida, studying at the Moffitt Cancer Center. Woo-hoo. So not exactly a lightweight in here today. We're very excited. But what's really cool is he's very focused on innovative treatments for advanced prostate, kidney, and bladder cancer, and he's co-investigator on several clinical trials. He presents at conferences, so we are super excited to have you here today. Thank you so much.
Of course,
so,
welcome.
Last housekeeping thing, those of you watching at home, and we'll put the survey link in there, use that to let us know what other classes like this you'd like to see and what other cooking classes you'd like to see from Allison. She's got a ton of great ones coming up. So, Allison, I'm going to let you get started.
Perfect. All right. And my son just went to USF for the first time.
Oh,
He's
nice.
just started school there, so very exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, so today what we're going to be making is a spinach salad with carrot ginger miso dressing, a refreshing smoothie, and gochujang, I always stumble on that word, tomato tofu. How do you say it? Gochujang, tomato tofu served over brown rice. And before we get started with the presentation, I want to just start with the tofu. When you buy tofu, you want to make sure you're getting organic tofu, because then you know it doesn't have genetically modified ingredients in it. So I bought this at Sprouts. I bought another one at Publix. They come in these little packages, but you want to use, for this dish, extra firm tofu, and the key is to get the most moisture out of your tofu. So you can buy a fancy tofu press, and yes, I am the queen of kitchen gadgets, but I don't yet have that one. But I find it just easy enough to put it between 2 clean dish rags and then just put something heavy on top of it and squeeze out the extra moisture. That way it gets more crispy and stuff like that. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to cut this into cubes like this and spray it with olive oil spray, because olive oil is good at higher temperatures. It also has omega-3 fatty acids, which help reduce inflammation. So that's what I'm going to get working on, and then I'm going to move on and make you guys the smoothie, okay? All right.
All right.
So how long have you been working with Advent Health?
So I've been here for 7 years now. So after I finished up over at Moffitt, I did fellowship in cancer and robotics at the City of Hope over in LA. So spent a year and a half there pretty much just focusing just on robotics and advanced laparoscopy cases for prostate cancers, bladder cancers, kidney cancers, and then came over here afterwards. So we've built up a pretty big robotic oncology program over at the hospital over here. We do a ton of great stuff, ton of high volume stuff. So very happy. It's been a good place to work at.
That is awesome.
So things like this are one of the reasons why I love Advent Health. There are so many different ways that you can have outreach. We've done a bunch of outreach projects. We've gone into the communities before for this. You know, prostate cancer obviously is one of the most common cancers that can be diagnosed. Typically for males, outside of skin cancer, I believe it actually is the single most commonly diagnosed disease. And the problem is that it suffers from every single other thing that males suffer from. We don't talk about it. We don't do much about it. So any way of getting information out about screening, the way we manage things is always very helpful. In addition to treatment options, I'm super passionate about screening, figuring out when guys come out. Normally we bring patients out for screening for prostate cancer at 50. there was once a big debate about when you start screening patients for prostate cancer. And, historically we started it pretty early on. Then there was a concern about it causing too many issues as a result of overtreatment. But we started seeing a significant, what we call a stage migration, which means that cancer was starting to get worse as a result of us not screening as much as we should. So now we're kind of pendulum swinging the other way. We're getting guys back into the office to do a little bit more evaluations. People who have high risk factors, so people who have symptoms of it, African American males, people who have strong family histories, among other things, we usually start screening at 40, and it's super simple. It's just a rectal examination, a PSA blood test. If you guys haven't had yours done, I certainly encourage, if you're above 40, to get it done. Another important thing is obviously how food plays into it. Yeah, exactly, Sephora. You guys are coming. Good old fingers coming for you guys. Food is like anything else. It's super important for us. It's funny. A lot of the things in a lot of the different nutrients and things like that have been studied for prostate cancer prevention, management of it, and a lot of the studies didn't reach good statistical significance in terms of prevention and helping it out. But there's actually been a bunch of studies recently in the last few years that show that a general balanced diet, good health, is super helpful for people who do develop prostate cancer in terms of their overall success rates, whether that be survival or morbidity-free existence. So I think this is one of the most healthy things, helpful things we can do, which is healthy as well.
And that looks like eliminating excess sugar, eliminating ultra-processed foods and things like that, incorporating more plants into your diet. Studies show that if you eat 30 different plants in a week, it really helps improve your gut microbiome, and your gut is where helps prevent disease, helps decrease anxiety, depression, heart disease, diabetes, things like that. So we really want to be feeding our gut bacteria the good foods in the fiber-filled foods that you're going to find in the plants. And when I tell people, oh my gosh, you have to eat 30 different plants in a week, their eyeballs get really big. And they're like, I don't think I do that. But you don't just count lettuce and things like that. You can count seeds, nuts, beans, legumes, and different things like that, whole grains, that all counts. So at the end, we'll count up how many different plants we ate today just in this one meal, and you might be shocked that you almost hit that goal or hit the goal, okay? And then I'm including soy, tofu in a couple different ways in this because it can be protective against cancers. And so we're having soy made into tofu, and then we're having soy made in miso. It's fermented soy, which is really good for your gut microbiome. And then we have our edamame, which are the soybeans. So these are awesome. I've roasted these on a baking sheet with some olive oil spray and salt and pepper, and they actually taste like peanuts. It's very interesting. So there you go. I'm just going to pop these into the oven. The original recipe called for me putting it in a saucepan, but I always find that my tofu breaks apart, and I like more crispy or tougher tofu, not like a ground up tofu in this dish, so I'm baking it. So I'll put that
30 different plants is a lot. I mean, I'm not sure I've had 30 different plants in the last year of my diet, so I'm excited.
Well, you're benefiting from this class.
I'm actually super excited to learn about all this stuff, yeah. That's amazing.
Then you would
just try to figure out alternatives.
Well, for you, if you're eating it for yourself, obviously don't feed the child the soy. So you could use a meat. It wouldn't be a plant-based version. Seitan is like another plant-based source that you can have, but like tempeh, tofu, those are all soy-based. Yeah. A lot of the vegetarian imitation meats have soy in it as well. So you have to really look at the labels to make sure that it is eliminated. Yeah. How old's your child with the soy allergy?
8. It's gotten better since he's gotten older. But
Yeah. So I would focus, soy is not the only thing that's going to prevent, cancer, but whole food, plant-based diet, incorporating, the tomatoes and the watermelon and things like that, the seeds, those are going to help provide nutrients that prevent prostate cancer and stuff like that. It's crazy we're talking about prostate cancer in an 8-year-old already, but you got to think about it because, right, and when you're children, you're forming habits with them and modeling for them what the future should look like. My son just went to USF for the first time, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't really do a good job because I didn't show him how to cook chicken on his own. And then time just like went away. I'm like, I didn't have mommy cooking school. And then he shared with me a video on his Snapchat. That's how we communicate these days, of him cooking his first chicken on the skillet, making his own tacos. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. I did do a good job. So next I'm going to move over to the refreshing smoothie. And when they were printing out the recipe books for you, they're like, are you sure you meant cherry tomatoes in this, not cherries? I'm like, yes, I meant cherry tomatoes, because we know that the tomatoes and the watermelon are very high in lycopene, which can help reduce prostate cancer. And it's shocking because you can't really taste the cherries in it. Now, do I have any vegans in here? Nope. Okay. Because this recipe does use honey in it. So some vegans count this as an animal product because it comes from bees. So I was going to swap it out with maple, but I'm just going to stick to the original recipe since I didn't want to, offend anybody if they're strictly vegan. So in here, I'm going to be putting in our frozen watermelon cubes. This is really cool because I am like a kid in a candy store. When I come to a farmer's market or I see BOGO at Publix on produce, I will rack it up, and I can't eat it all. My family can't eat it all. So I will put a lot of things in the freezer, which is awesome. So you can use up some of those ingredients that you get at a discount when they're in season, or you could buy it frozen. Frozen's totally fine. And so I just looked at what would be the cheapest route now. And the frozen produce are picked at the peak of freshness. So oftentimes they're more fresh than what you can get in the grocery store. Because like the strawberries, if they're out of season, where are they coming from? Somewhere far, far away. So the frozen, don't be afraid of that. So now I'm going to put in I'm Rachel Raying it. I'm not measuring exactly.
I have a question about the frozen fruit.
Yes.
I love frozen strawberries, but lately I've been getting them and they have a funny taste.
I don't know.
You don't know
No, I haven't heard that.
what kind of taste.
She was saying
Gas,
like a gas.
because they gas bananas to ripen them faster. That's why organic, they're not gas. I asked about the produce, so that's what they do. If it is organic, because I asked, what's the difference of a non-organic fruit to organic fruit, especially bananas I was buying? And they said because they're not gas, to ripen them faster.
Interesting.
Yeah. With those pre-made spinach or salad kits, they load it up with gas, and then the minute you open it, it starts to go bad really fast. So
That gives that chemical taste too?
I've never tasted the chemical taste, so I'm not sure. You'll have to tell me if you could taste it in this.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Couple times a day.
All right, I'm going to put the blender on real fast, so hold up.
And I know that most of our focus is about prostate cancer for today, but I mean, general men's health stuff is on the table as well. So if you guys have any questions about anything outside of that realm, I'm somewhat qualified to answer those also.
This year, I've heard so much of cancer. My cousin got prostate cancer, and he's in his 70s. And then my friend got bladder cancer. He woke up one morning and went to the doctor, and he has bladder cancer.
Yeah.
And I'm just seeing that coming up more and more.
Yeah.
And then my Bible study leader, her husband this year has prostate cancer.
Yeah.
Is there an
Yeah.
epidemic, or then I talked to my doctor, because these are my loved ones and my friends and everything. I'm very concerned about my grandchildren,
Yeah.
male grandchildren,
Of course.
or female, with their other types of cancer. And he said maintenance, the prevention, prevention. And you say they should
Thank
be
you.
getting their tests
Yeah.
in their 40s.
Well, depending. So
Yeah.
with the personal risk factors, then definitely in your 40s. If you don't have any risk factors, 50s are fine. But you're preaching to the choir. I mean, diagnosis of prostate cancer, bladder cancer, every other type of cancer we deal with has skyrocketed in almost every single domain that we deal with. And the thing is, not only are we diagnosing them more frequently now, we're diagnosing them at advanced stages. So things like, bladder cancers, the type of cancers that go towards the kidneys, we're seeing them more than we ever have in the past. And there's really not much of an understanding as to why that's the case. Some of it is that people are living to be older. So as a result of living to be older, we're able to diagnose those things just because they happen to older patients. But some of it is that we're finding them in younger patients too. So we think that there's some environmental factors to it. And one of the key environmental factors we believe is certainly associated with the foods and things that we put into our body. So again, while we haven't really necessarily associated things specifically as, hey, this will prevent your prostate cancer risk, we know that an unhealthy diet theoretically is going to cause a ramping up in the likelihood of those things forming. So yeah, we're seeing a lot more of it and we're combating them, but it is a problem for sure. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when I do a vitamin smoothie almost every morning, and I put a lot of plants, tons of good stuff, but I put whey isolate in there.
Okay.
As opposed to like a plant-based protein.
Yeah.
And I was always thinking if I took the whey isolate out and did plant-based, do you have any recommendations on what I did?
Hold on before you answer. The question is about whey protein versus a plant-based protein.
I use a plant-based protein that I actually sell, so I didn't want to make this into a sales thing, but that I use a plant-based protein because it has 70 different phytonutrients in it and a high-quality probiotic. So I look at what the ingredients are when I'm picking out my, and you want to be able to read the words and understand what they mean, and not be like chemicals and stuff like that.
Like I noticed like Orgain is one of the main ones.
Yeah.
They have like other superfoods blended in.
Yeah,
But
but superfood is like a marketing term, so you really want to look at the labels
they
too.
also have the chemicals in there.
Yeah,
You see this.
yeah. When I used to work at the hospital as a clinical dietitian, I'm like feeding all these kids prepackaged supplements, and I'm like, oh man, I'm looking at the label, I'm like, that's just a science experiment. So making your own smoothies, I think, is a better route. So, but you definitely want to look at the nutrition facts label because it's ultra processed if they're adding in all these chemicals,
Plant-based better than whey isolate?
Is whey protein better than plant-based? It depends. I flip-flop. I have both versions at home, and I go back and forth. So.
Yeah. I normally use whey isolate. I've never actually switched over to the plant-based, so maybe I'll take a look at the ingredients and kind of go from there and see.
Yeah. Are you 100% plant-based? Or are you?
Usually I just use whey. Yeah.
But are you flexitarian? Or do you eat meat? I eat meat too.
Yeah. I'm closer to the carnivore diet.
Yeah,
than I am anything else.
Okay. I'm just curious because whenever I teach with different physicians, you never know, are they with this extreme or the middle? So I'm in the middle with a plant-forward attitude, trying to get people to eat more plants, but I still do incorporate animal protein in my diet as well, but just choosing the leaner meats. And the funny thing is, I know I'm a dietitian and I should like fish, but I hate fish. I grew up in South Florida. My dad loves fishing, and so he would be like, "Come here, Allie, and check out what the fish ate." And I would hear the lobsters screaming on the pots in the kitchen, and I would see them cleaning the shrimp, and I'm like, "No!" They bribed me to eat shrimp. I remember one time they're like, "We'll buy you a video game if you eat this shrimp." Well, I was a little brat, and I ate the shrimp, and I kept it in the cheek of my mouth and waited till I could go to the bathroom a half hour later and spit it out. So.
Well, Allison, I grew up on a farm, and we butchered pigs and cows, and I still eat both. So. But that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I wish it had effect that I didn't love burgers so much.
That's
but
so funny.
Before, real quick, Allison, just one question: can anybody taste the tomatoes in their smoothie? You can't. No, Oneida can't. You can. Trevor has a refined palate. You can take.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
But is it good? Yeah, it's still good. You can taste it, but it's good. Well, that's interesting. So a quick question for Dr. Emdich from the chat. Women's wondering if the intake of more fiber is a preventative factor for prostate-related diseases.
So that's a good question. So in general, yes. I mean, it's more so associated with things like colon and all that, but I think that falls in line with exactly what I mentioned before. A generalized, balanced, healthy diet is certainly going to be helpful for most things. And again, when we talk about men's health, prostate's obviously important, but kidney stone formation, BPH, ED, testosterone, things like that are also helpful too. So in terms of adding up fiber in the diet, absolutely, it's going to be helpful in those.
And for men, you need like 38 grams of fiber a day if you're under 50. I think it goes down to like low 30s for over 50, but that's just the bare minimum, okay? When I've taught with Dr. Orman, she's a radiation oncologist, and she tracked one day and she ate 100 grams of fiber in one day. I'm like, dang. But just incorporating more plants is a surefire way to get some more of that fiber into your diet. And when you are at the grocery store and you're choosing, like, say, for instance, bread, look at the back of the label and look at how much dietary fiber is in that so that you can make a better choice. And just because it says, like, whole grain, made with whole grains, well, how many whole grains are you making it with? Because it's marketing. So you don't trust what's on the front of the bag. You always look at the back and look at the ingredient list and the nutrition facts label.
How do you get these little voodoo tools again?
I love my gadgets. Okay, so this is Amazon, and what I love about this is you put your oil and it measures for you, so you don't get like another thing dirty. And then here I just put in my olive oil or avocado oil. Those are two anti-inflammatory oils, so I could use this as a spray. You'll save so much more money when you do it this way versus the aerosol-related ones, because there's really not much in there. You go through those really fast.
Do you know where on Amazon, or like what those
I have a link to my Amazon store because everyone asked me, so I'll share the link with you, and it's just like there's 50 things in there, so be prepared.
I need that as well.
All right, I love it.
Thanks to Allison, we've been adding those things to the nutrition theater here as well.
Yes,
the
yes.
herb scissors, which she'll
Yes.
use at some point. So
Yep, exactly. All
Is
right.
that what these things are?
Yes.
Yes,
They
yeah.
have multiple
I mean,
blades.
as a surgeon, I love this. I'm trying to figure out a reason I can use this in the operating room. That's amazing. Yeah, exactly.
Gosh.
Trying to talk to you. Oh, is that right? Yeah, that's funny.
All right, so I'm adding some oil.
Allison, which one are you working on right now?
This is the gochujang. I don't know how to say it. The
Oh, the gochujang?
gochujang. Thank you.
Gochujang, there you go.
Tomato tofu. So I'm putting in sliced grape tomatoes, and I'm gonna let that cook down a bit. And then I'm gonna mix in some low sodium tamari. This is a substitute for soy sauce. And so it's gluten-free. So if someone has an issue with gluten, we are having are having rice here. So no gluten in these or your smoothie. But I always look for the lowest sodium content when you're looking at soy sauces or coconut aminos or tamari, because there's a lot of sodium in those sauces. So we don't need all that extra sodium. Our body does need some sodium, but we don't need all that extra sodium.
Yeah,
so
there's sodium in almost everything. One of the big things is stone formation too. So your body actually will take sodium, and when it tries to get rid of it in the urine, it brings calcium from inside of you out with the sodium. So people who form kidney stones frequently,
Yeah.
sodium is actually one of the biggest byproducts of that. Yeah. Anybody? Sorry, go.
Question on that.
Yeah.
So there's all this talk about how much water you should drink a day.
Yeah, good question.
I've got guys in there who work for me, carry around gallon jugs
Yeah.
every day. What is your general recommendation?
Before you answer, the question is, what is his recommendation for how much water to drink a day?
I'm going to forget that the entire time.
That's okay. Sorry, excuse me interrupting, but the people in the chat keep yelling at me.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so in terms of, so it's funny, there are many things in medicine that we think we have figured out, and then 2 years later we realize we don't. So sodium intake is one of those things, right? We used to be very tight on it, then we started getting loose, then we went tight on it again. Same thing with water intake. Because historically, we used to tell people 8 glasses a day, which is not necessarily always adequate for it. Then there came to the point most recently where people just say, drink to thirst. You know, your body has a great way of regulating and telling you when you should be thirsty enough. The problem with that is that we start seeing a bunch of patients who are dehydrated. So one of the things that we use, so again, we'll go back to stone formation. There's a test we do called the 24-hour urine afterwards, where we see how much urine patients produce over that 24-hour period. And most people, and a lot of it's dependent on weight, but the average person, average weight, you're going to be producing about 2.5 liters of urine per day. So if you work that backwards in terms of how much you have to drink to get to that point, most people say typically about 3 liters, 3.5 liters or so of water per day. Now, that's from all causes. It's not, you know, if we eat this.
Oh, excuse me, there's juicy. That was on cue.
Should've worn
That
the
was
white coat.
perfect.
Yeah, exactly. If you're eating this and you're drinking water, you're not just getting the water content from the water, you're also getting from that. So I usually tell patients, you know, the 500 cc bottles, 5 of those a day, probably good enough for most folks, and obviously monitor how much urine you're producing. If your urine looks very concentrated, then you're probably someone who should be having a little bit more. So it's one of those things that it's hard to standardize and generalize across the board, but most people are dehydrated, and it's always better to err on the side of more. Yeah.
Drink too much.
That's the thing. I mean, very, your body is, so I was going to say your body's amazing, but you might think I was talking specifically about you, but yeah, yours isn't bad, yeah. But
Because I love to drink water.
absolutely. So and what I was going to say is the body's amazing. So the ability to manage a lot of the things that we put into our body is actually exquisite. So same thing with fluid intake. It is extremely hard to overhydrate in any sort of a significant way. Now, it's not impossible. There's some people who certainly do that, but you will just void more, you'll pee a little bit more frequently, and that's not a big deal. Now, that doesn't hold true for everybody. Certainly, as you get a little bit older, some folks have other issues where they do end up with edema. So there is a point where you can actually fluid overload in those cases. But for the average person, easy to manage. Yeah.
I've also found that it's easy to drink water when you're hungry.
Yeah.
Not only when you're thirsty.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It also helps with weight.
Absolutely. So I mean, usually one of the things, I mean, this is a little bit anecdotal, but usually I start off every single one of my meals by chugging some water beforehand, and then you go ahead and eat whatever you're going to drink.
That's what I recommend to my patients to help with weight loss, because it helps suppress the hunger hormone.
Yeah.
To drink about 16 ounces before you eat or drink anything, even your coffee. I generally tell my clients, drink at least half your body weight in water. So 200 pounds, you're going to drink at least 100 ounces. And if you're exercising, you definitely need to drink more because you're using a lot of that water in your sweat. If you drink a lot of caffeine, you should up your water intake as well.
A lot of caffeine, a lot of alcohol as well. Yeah.
Is it true that caffeine is not a substitute for water?
Definitely not. No, yeah.
Now, my heart doctor, I have 3 stents, and I have underlying condition heart. And he told me, definitely not you, don't drink, only when you're thirsty. Now, my brother came to visit me, and he had a bottle of water in his hand all the time.
Yeah.
And he said, no, that's against my heart doctor. No, because if you're thirsty, then you're dehydrated at that point.
Yes.
So your cardiologist, just to be clear, that your cardiologist told you not to drink, to only drink when you're thirsty.
When I'm thirsty.
So the same reason why I mentioned before. So most people are able to regulate a lot of that. The reason is that if your heart's not pumping everything out as much as it should, you can get volume overloaded very quickly. So if you're drinking an excess amount of fluids, you probably notice when you walk a ton, it happens to all of us, but you end up with a little bit of swelling in the feet, a little bit of swelling in the fingers. That's part of your body doing what we call third spacing that fluid. It takes it out of the veins and it puts it into the soft tissue around it. So when you have any issue with the heart and other conditions as well, if you drink too much water, you end up getting too much of it put into that system, and it can overwhelm you. So there are some people absolutely where you don't want to necessarily push it unless you feel that you're thirsty. Which goes back to what I mentioned before. That's kind of the general new way of thinking about fluid intake. A lot of it is that your body will tell you when you need some. The challenge is that it's a fine balance between the two, which is why urine output is something that we go by a lot. But I would say in your case, definitely you don't want to necessarily push more than you need.
Just to round this conversation out on that toxic growth video, can you talk about what color we should be seeing urine?
Yeah, good question. And that,
Light.
Drink until it's clear.
Yes.
for the most part,
Unless
yeah.
you're taking B vitamins.
We're
then
talking
you're
about
gonna
the
have
color
one.
of urine.
Yeah.
We don't want people to miss this important point.
Exactly.
What color should your urine be?
exactly.
Very
So
clear.
we can even use things on the table, the olive oil and whatnot. So that's probably a little bit too dark. I mean,
Yeah.
there are ways of being scientific about it. We can test the specific gravity when we do urine analyses and all that. But for the average person, the lighter the better to a certain extent. So for instance, when I have folks who come in with kidney stones and we're managing them afterwards, I basically tell them, hey, your urine should almost look like water while you pass it afterwards. It doesn't always have to be that way, but if you're getting to the point where it's almost cola colored or something like that, that tells you that you're way
Yeah.
too far to the dehydration aspect of it.
Yeah. When my boys don't flush the toilet, I go in their room and I'm like, drink some water.
That's funny.
But if you take B vitamins, it will be like shockingly like electric yellow.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid of that.
Rave. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I
Smells
just
delicious.
turn these over so they're browning more on all sides. And I'm gonna pop this in
Yeah.
for a little bit.
So while she's doing that, you talked about screening ages for prostate. What are since you are a urologist and you treat bladder and diseases as well,
Yeah.
what are either some warning signs or are those also cancers that there should be preventative checks for, like you do with your colonoscopy, breast cancer, et cetera?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, so for bladder, interestingly enough, they were talking about urine. So one of the only ways that we find bladder cancer in existence is microscopic blood in the urine. So if you're ever having visible blood, it's usually a sign that there's something that's going on. Now, the most common cause of visible blood in the urine is just an enlarged prostate, right? But it's certainly, there's really nothing else that bladder cancer will show. So typically when you get your annual checks, you've probably already seen, you guys always pee in a cup and get tested for that. Not a drug test, just a urinalysis, right? What they're looking for is microscopic red blood cells that are in there, and that's one of the only signs that it could be for bladder cancer. So that's all you need as far as screening of that goes.
I don't think they do that as part of a well woman check. I'm asking a few ladies in the room. Do they?
Yeah, usually.
I haven't.
A
No.
urine test for my well women?
haven't
is
done
it
that.
not as common for women to test that
It's
way?
definitely just as common. So I mean, usually about 50 or so. I mean, maybe aged
Maybe.
out.
I just
Yeah.
turned 50, so I haven't been there yet.
Yeah, usually about 50 or so. We typically do urinalysis.
So
also.
about
3-4 times a year.
Yeah.
okay. So
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
that it's an age thing.
Yeah,
So I haven't
it
hit
is.
50 yet. So
Yeah.
maybe okay. Sorry, Allison.
Call me out.
It's coming for you then.
I
Okay.
know.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but when you said that, I was like, that's not part of my annual physical right
so
now.
Yeah.
Bladder is being checked into just with that. And then as far as kidney, unfortunately, no, there's no screening things that you do for it. There are certain professions who have a slightly higher risk of it. So like firefighters, for instance, they're starting to do these life scan things where they actually will do full-on ultrasounds, full body, and sometimes even CTs in those cases. But outside of having a profession that predisposes you to that, no, there's no routine screening that's done.
And is that because those professions aren't using the restroom as frequently, or is it exposure to?
My grandson had just became a fireman.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
What
yeah.
did you say?
So there are certain professions, so typically for kidney cancer, we're discussing whether or not there's any screening that's needed to specifically look for kidney cancers, and there really isn't, at least no guidelines for that. But what I was saying is that there are certain professions who do have a slightly higher risk of those, and in those professions, there actually are doing full screenings relatively early on in life. So one of the big initiatives that the fire department's done in the last few years is they do these things called life scans, which is basically where they do full imaging of the abdomen and pelvis and sometimes other places, because theoretically exposure to smoke, hazardous things just during the line of work puts them at slightly increased risk of developing them. So I have a number of patients who I've found kidney tumors on in their 30s and 40s who have gotten it just because of the life scans. Now the thing is, I'm not certain that those people have developed it as a result of their occupational exposure or if it's just because we're seeing so much more of it anyway, but those are the only groups who do get screened earlier on.
So were you saying, I missed part of it, were you saying they're screened because of their exposure or because they are so busy and they're not going to the bathroom as often?
No, they're screened because of their exposure.
Okay.
Yeah. So it wouldn't really have much to do with the urinary aspect.
That's what I was wondering, because then you'd think of like teachers
That's
and
what I
other
was
folks like
thinking.
that that might,
Nurses.
yeah.
No, that predisposes to UTIs though.
I have a question about prostate cancer. How much of it is genetic?
A significant amount.
The questions of the
Yeah.
genetics of prostate cancer. Sorry.
I will do it once before the end of the day. I'll
Okay.
remember to get it.
My father-in-law has it. How much is that going to affect the prostate?
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of all of the risk factors, first degree relative is one of the more significant ones for sure. It's not a slam dunk. It's not like if your father had it, you're definitely going to get it. But it usually just means that we screen a little bit earlier on as a result of that. It gives us kind of pause in certain cases to say, hey, maybe we're not going to be okay with the PSA, which is the blood test we check for the prostate, being at a certain level if the family history was there. Or maybe we're going to be a little bit more likely to biopsy, things like that. But yes, there is an association there for sure. And it's almost dose dependent too. So you have someone who has a single first degree relative that has prostate cancer is going to be a little bit less likely to develop it than someone who has my dad, 2 brothers, 3 uncles type of deal like that. Yeah.
So I'll be 40 in January, so I'm thinking that I don't have a pre-existing family history, but I was thinking perhaps for the PSA test,
Yeah.
and not do the physical test.
Yeah, you can, absolutely. Yeah. You're not jumping to have someone's finger there? No.
I'm wondering, I guess that's one of the guys.
I want to kick that down the road as far as possible.
Could you also monitor it through the PSA?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it like an annual marker?
So most prostate cancers are going to be picked up by just PSA alone. The thing is that there are still some prostate cancers that don't express PSA. It's not a very frequent thing, but if you look at all the papers for it, yeah, you see typically anywhere between 5 to 25%, which is a huge range. I'm thinking it's probably more along the 5% of it. But still, there are some cancers that you're just not going to pick up if you only go by the PSA. So most of us are pretty judicious about recommending the rectal examination. Now, the frequency of that has changed significantly for most people. You know, some docs don't do it at all. I think that's foolhardy. But if someone has a PSA that puts them in the very low risk group, there's some cases where I'll go every other year, every third year. So to give you an idea of what those numbers are, just for whenever you get yours checked, the average PSA should be less than 4. Obviously, depending on age group, it can be even lower. Depending on age group, it can be even higher. So someone who's 70, you're a little bit more lenient with where the PSA is going to be. But let's just say we're going to use 4 just for simplicity's sake. Less than 2 confers a very, very low risk of prostate cancer development. Less than 1, multiple longitudinal studies have shown that there's basically almost a 0% chance of developing prostate cancer within the next 5 to 10 years after that. So suffice it to say, if I have a patient who comes in and they're like, let's just say I see you and your PSA is 0.3, and you say, hey doc, do I need to have an exam, or what do I do next? Usually I'll do a rectal every 2-3 years in those cases. Yeah.
And just be prepared. At 45, you need to do your colonoscopy.
Oh yeah.
So you just get used to it now.
Yeah, life gets better and better.
I know since I was 28.
Oh,
Yeah,
so you're
okay,
familiar.
gotcha. Yeah,
I woke
yeah,
up
yeah.
during my last one. Yeah.
Concerned about my grandson. Does he have to ask for that, or they do that automatically?
It's pretty much an automatic thing. My understanding is I'm not part of the policy for making for it, but I believe if you've served a certain amount of time within the fire department, yes, it's usually part of the screenings. But I don't think it's something to be concerned about. I think, from my understanding, speaking anecdotally, I don't think there's been many things that have been found outside of the normal range. So it's not like they're picking up a significantly higher risk of cancer for firefighters.
All right, Allison, what are you working on down there?
I am working on our salad. I'm making the spinach salad with the carrot ginger miso dressing. So I'm making the dressing now. It's got extra virgin olive oil and the miso, which is our fermented soybeans. So that's a great way to get some fermented foods for our gut health in. We got dark toasted sesame oil, rice wine vinegar, maple syrup, carrots, and ginger. And I'm going to show you how to do the peel of ginger, because I see some people using a knife and they're wasting so much of it. So I just take my ginger here, and you just take a spoon and you peel it like that. And then you get all that paper off the outside. Ginger is really anti-inflammatory. See, I'm just peeling it like this.
My daughter-in-law has a mangoes tree. She's starting.
Really?
She used one of those things and put it in a pot, and she's got it now. It's this big.
Wow.
And the thing about it, she supports it tremendously.
Yeah.
Everything. I can't stand the taste. So.
You're not going to like this dressing then. Well, you can.
How can you?
The dressing's going to be on the side, so you don't have to add it if you don't want it. But
I want to take advantage of the.
Well, taste it, because you know what? Sometimes I always tell people try things in different ways, because I grew up hating Brussels sprouts. You know why? My mom fed me Brussels sprouts in the box, bird's eye view, I think, and it was frozen in that box and then boiled it. Well, it was nasty. So I love roasted Brussels sprouts now. So maybe you will like it in the salad dressing, because it's not so potent.
As a tea.
Have you ever been to like Kobe's Steakhouse or a place like that?
Yes.
Do you like their dressing on their salad?
Yeah.
That's this.
Oh.
Yay! See? You had no idea. And I had already taken the cubed tofu and put it into our pan. This is so much better. When I tested this recipe out, the tofu was crumbling apart, so that's why I baked it. So this is a little bit spicy, just to forewarn you. I'm gonna let that continue to simmer, and I came over here for my knife. Where did my knife go? Here it is. And I am going to just coarsely chop the ginger up. Sorry, this is in the way.
Yeah, I just want to see how you.
Yeah.
You cleaned it.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
That's nice.
So when you're holding a knife, you want to hold it like this at the base and pinch the blade, okay? You don't want to go like this, because you're more likely to injure yourself and cut yourself. Yeah, well, and you survived this long. I'm surprised. Let me see all your fingers. So for knife safety, you need to go like that. And when you're cutting, you want to use the claw method, so you don't cut your fingertips off, because we don't like visiting the hospital as a patient. And so I'm just going to coarsely chop up the ginger, because I'm just going to blend it all together anyway. make sure you get your knives sharpened. If you have the knives that your wife got at her bridal shower, chances are they need to be sharpened. And rumor has it that Bass Pro Shops will sharpen your knives for free. But my husband told me that, and I haven't tested it out yet. I think it's just a bribe to get me to go to Bass Pro Shops. So I'm on to him. So I'm like, I think I'll go to the farmer's market because that's my people. So,
They do sharpen knives.
okay.
Yeah, oh, is that right?
So they do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mostly like hunting knives.
Well, you cut the venison and the stuff with this. So, so then, and do they do it for free? All right, so we have confirmation. I just feel weird coming in armed with my knives, you know? Like, don't arrest me.
Not the only armed person, though.
Yeah, very true, very true.
Where's
Oh, that's
that?
funny.
Bass Pro Shop is over by all those outlet malls.
Bass Pro.
Yeah. And then I'm going to add some water to thin this out, and I'm going to put it in.
The knuckle method that you just showed is actually pretty cool because I literally sliced my finger last week.
Oh, really?
No joke. I swear I'm a surgeon. I swear I'm good with a knife. But yeah.
It's so funny. I teach a lot of the Advent Health physicians about culinary medicine and edible education.
Yeah.
And we'll go over knife safety, and then we'll disperse into our groups. And I see them all. I'm like, girl,
Oh,
do
yeah,
you
yeah.
like working at the hospital? Do you want to be a patient there too? Because you're going to be there, you know? Yes, so you go like this. It's the claw method, so you use your knuckles as a guide. It's awkward feeling initially, so you really got to practice it and do it because your fingertips just want to
Oh,
go
yeah.
out there.
I saw it happening too. I saw my finger right there. I saw the knife go right next to it. I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. Just right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just cross both my fingers there.
Oh, was that right?
Ceramic blade.
Oh,
man.
yeah.
Jeez. All right.
And don't put knives in a sink with water in it. I made the mistake of using my food processor, and the blade was in there, and I was rushing. My kid was yelling for me, and I grabbed it and I sliced the tip of my thumb. And at the time I worked in a clinic I sat next to the nurse practitioner. I'm like, I think we have a problem. But I came in the next day because I couldn't stop bleeding, and I had to have the silver nitrate.
Oh, yeah.
That hurt like heck, you know. So I learned my lesson.
That was me with a mandolin once.
Oh, yeah.
I will
I'm
never
ter-
use a mandolin again.
I
Yeah.
make sure I have all the safety
I
precautions.
was using the safety thing. I was doing potatoes, and I
Yeah.
was getting down to the end, and it kept falling off that little safety thing. And
They have knife gloves that you could buy for safety for that reason. I should add to my
add that to the
Amazon
cart.
store.
Oh, yeah, seriously. Number 51.
What?
You're up around people fishing.
I know. I didn't clean the fish though. I'd run the other way. All right, I'm gonna blend this up. And one thing I recommend when you're cooking is tasting while you go. So you want to see, do I need to add a little bit more
It's
of
good.
something?
I don't like ginger either, but this looks good. Yeah.
Yes, that is my smoothie maker.
Oh, that's a smoothie maker.
Mm-hmm. That's good. When I made this at home, it was more bright orange, and I really loved that color. So I'm going to add some more of my carrots to it. And this is just another way to get more fiber in your salad dressing. So I'm going to see if that will adjust the color a bit. Sorry, I'm blowing carrots at you a little bit. So we eat with our eyes, and we want to make our food appealing, and having different colors and textures is really awesome. So
That's the dressing.
this is the dressing. I'm going to put it on the side so that you can manage how much you want. I also recommend when you go, when you're mayonnaise jars, salad dressing jars, just save them because you could reuse them. You don't have to go buy fancy salad dressing things like that. And I'm gonna put together the salad. I like to do what I call a salad bar in my fridge when I am prepping for food at home. So I'll come home, go shop one day. The next day I may chop up everything and put them in glass containers. We want to try to transition as much as possible to storing our food in the glass containers because the plastics can also increase toxicity in our bodies and inflammation. And these often go BOGO at Publix. They just were a few weeks ago. So that's how I've eventually switched over to doing the glass containers. So also another thing with my salad bar in the fridge, when you open up your refrigerator, you see all these beautiful colors. So you're more likely to choose them. Your children are more likely to choose them. And when I'm hungry and feeling like, oh, I need a snack, I'm more likely to grab peppers that are already sliced or carrots that are already cut for me than a whole pepper and eat it like an apple. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So if I'm feeling like, oh, I'm kind of hungry, it's not at dinner time, instead of going in that pantry and grabbing something unhealthy, I'll open up the fridge and my salad bar in the fridge and get my peppers or carrots, cucumbers, whatnot.
Makes sense.
So, but that being said, I also talk to a lot of clients where time is a barrier. They don't feel like, spending hours in the kitchen, and I honestly don't either. So getting shortcuts, pre-cut shredded carrots is totally fine. The bagged spinach I got, this was frozen in the freezer section, and all I did was run it under hot water to thaw it out, and I'm gonna pour that on there. I'm using some garbanzo beans or chickpeas. I always buy the reduced sodium. I put water in it to rinse it off again, and I'm adding that here for a plant-based protein. We've got some of our tomatoes for the lycopene. This week, or yesterday, it's on, I don't know if it's on sale today, but Thursday has the new sales every week at Publix, and I used to be a queen of couponing too. So I like all the different colors because you eat, you want to eat something that looks pretty and desirable, And the pumpkin seeds have zinc and magnesium in it, and I like it to add a little bit of a crunch. Nuts are also a great add-on, and let me get some tongs and toss this, and we'll pass this around. It's so weird. All right, so I'm just going to toss these salad.
I thought I was the only person that preferred to have the cut stuff as opposed to the whole ones.
Yeah.
My wife always laments that. She's always like, if I leave a box of strawberries in the fridge, you'll never touch it. But if I cut them up in half,
right,
they're gone the next day.
Absolutely.
I thought it was just me. All right.
Absolutely.
Now the salad dressing, do you have to refrigerate it?
Yes.
And how long will it last?
It lasts about a week. So you can do half the recipe size. Here, I'll help you with this. This bowl is pretty heavy. Okay.
That's wonderful.
All right, there you go.
Okay. So.
And here is,
Okay.
you can pour your own. Do you want a spoon to drizzle on it, or do you want to just pour it? You can take your, all right, you tell me when.
That's enough.
I'm going to get it. Okay. I'm going to get a spoon for this.
You got any more space there? It's funny. Yeah.
And it lasts longer, but all the fruits and vegetables in mason jars, they automatically close out.
Yeah.
And it seems to make the food last longer.
Yes,
When it's cut?
airtight. Yeah.
That's interesting, yeah.
Yeah. And don't be afraid of putting some of your stuff in the freezer, like the grape tomatoes. I always buy them when they're BOGO. I'm pretty much the only one that eats it in the house, so I don't finish them all the time. So I'll put them in my freezer, and then when I'm roasting vegetables for dinner, if I want a quick, easy dinner, I'll make my protein, and then I'll take whatever veggies I have to roast, throw some frozen tomatoes on there, and it cooks awesome. And it's like, they burst with flavor, get all juicy, and
Do you thaw them out first, or do you put them straight in? Like
straight
that?
in frozen.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've been just standing up next to that so I could smell it.
So, Dr. Emtich, we've been talking about the nutrition element of lifestyle this whole class. This room is also filled with some of our fitness professionals, so to help them feel better about what they do with their life, how much does fitness play a role in activity in preventing cancer and then recovery?
I mean, a huge amount. So, I mean, I think that it's probably self-evident, the aspect that, being fit is going to help prevent certain things from occurring. But I think one of the things that probably is not as self-evident is once you get one of these diseases, how easy it is to treat and manage when you're fit and healthy. It is such a significant difference when you're operating, when you're managing someone through therapies, chemo, whatever it is, when they're healthy, when they're fit, and when they can manage whatever we're doing, as opposed to the patients who are not. So much so that, when I'm going to operate on someone, we do prostate removals, kidney removals, bladder removals all the time. it is one of the most important things that I have going into it. What patients, how fit they are, what they can put themselves through, how much body mass index they have. Not that BMI is the most accurate assessment of things, but it is helpful for us. So I always tell patients that the better shape you go into anything that you're diagnosed with or any type of surgery is the better shape you're going to come out of it with. So I think I can't understate it enough. I think it's probably the single most important thing.
Mm-hmm. And you could do workouts at home. You can go to the Crosby Center here. Walking after a meal is so good as well to help stabilize your blood sugar and not have those insulin spikes.
Yeah, walking after a meal is huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah.
So I'm using a shortcut because a lot of my clients are busy working people and they don't have time to cook rice. So I've got rice in this bag and I always forget and I pour it in the bowl to heat it up in the microwave. But we were talking, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't want to heat up plastic in the microwave because then the plastics can go in the food. So I'm going to just heat this up and warm the rice. What I like about using these packets is it creates a resistant starch. So when you cook potatoes and rice and beans and then let it cool and then say you eat it the next day, even if you reheat it, it creates a resistant starch. So that helps with stabilizing your blood sugars and feeds the good bacteria in your body. So you're not going to absorb all the carbohydrates in it if you were just to heat it up and eat it right away. So
there is something you have to be careful with rice reheating, right? Isn't that?
I think that people have been freaking out about arsenic and stuff like that, but it's also where your rice is being made or where like
if it's to restaurant to go rice is where it's I think been more problem. People have gotten really sick from it, I think.
Well, that would be foodborne illness.
Yeah. I think there's something with the reheat. I don't know. Sorry, I sidebarred us.
Yeah.
But Allison and I always hear about the biggest fears from TikTok when we come in here. Like, you did?
You did?
From
The best they could come up with the restaurant we ate at reheated the rice.
Oh.
So
okay.
but for some reason, rice tends to be one of I think from home and doing it this way when it's plain is different. 'Cause we had in here a dietitian from Advent Health's Translational Research Institute who talked about the resistant starches and how important that is.
Yeah.
But I think there is something to restaurant rice, something they put in it. If you were to get fried rice and reheat it the next day, it's dangerous.
Interesting. I do that all the time.
I'm not a big rice eater,
Yeah,
but also
makes
fried
sense,
rice
yeah.
has egg and stuff like that, so maybe it's like that, foodborne illness, I don't know. But this packet is organic, so I know it has less pesticides and things like that with the organic rice. If you do take time and make rice at home, it's really simple, and all you do, you make your rice, and what I do is once it cools down, I'll divide it up into individual serving sizes. You can get one of those silicone Ziploc baggies if you want to eliminate plastic from the like a Ziploc bag. I put it in there and then I score it so that I can easily break it apart and just get one serving out. But I love to batch cook and have extra food in my freezer for the nights that I don't want to cook. Like tonight, I'm not going to feel like cooking after I did all this, So I may grab an unstuffed cabbage soup in my freezer, or if I wanted to do, I have a picadillo recipe that I absolutely love with lots of vegetables in it, so I may put that in it as well, or have that for dinner.
Another big thing with the exercise portion of it is, we haven't talked much about like testosterone, ED, stuff like that, but compound exercises, things like squats, anything that you're going to do where you're actually working out large muscle parts of your body, actually has been shown to increase people's testosterone pretty significantly. So from a general health, obviously guys don't like to have minimal testosterone as they age, but it is one of the most common things that happens as you start hitting 40 and then you go off after that. Your testosterone usually starts kind of dipping down a decent amount. So those exercises and all that, especially when you guys put your patients through it, can be very helpful to maintain healthy lifestyle for them too. And we talked about surgeries and cancers and all that. One of the major things we see is this thing called sarcopenia. So lack of muscle mass. Lack of muscle mass has been shown to be one of the poorest indicators of how well patients do after surgeries or after any form of treatment as well. So those type of big muscle mass increases are actually pretty helpful for that. So I always tell people it's always helpful, especially even when you get to 70, 80, whatever it is. I mean, certainly you can do, just walking around the neighborhood is obviously going to be great, but if you can work in some form of resistance exercises with what you're doing, especially in the big compound groups, it's actually very helpful.
And if you go to the Crosby Center, they have personal trainers there that can help you learn how to use the equipment and what different exercises are going to benefit you in aging well.
I heard that if your testosterone does continue to dip, even if you're doing all those things, and you go on testosterone medication, doesn't that also then play heavy on the prostate piece?
So in a way, yeah.
Let's repeat
so,
the
yeah,
question.
So this is actually a really good question. So the question is basically how does testosterone play into prostate health as you get older and all that? So the general sense, and the reason why that was a concern, is that prostate cancer is usually fed by many different things, and one of those things being testosterone, right? So whenever we have people with metastatic prostate cancer or disease that's very aggressive, one of the main ways we have of treating that is by manipulating the testosterone axis and blocking testosterone so you don't have that fuel that feeds into the fire. A challenge is that there's a saturation point. So typically most cells in the body, and the prostate being that one included, anything above 50 still looks the same no matter what to the prostate. So there's been a couple different guys, one guy named Abraham Morgenthaler, and another guy named Abdul Magid Traish. They're very big researchers in how prostate cancer and testosterone interlinks. And what has been found is actually that once you get above that kind of 50 saturation point, there's not much difference in terms of what excess testosterone will do to the prostate. Now, having really high testosterone can cause a bunch of other issues.
You could
it can
pass
cause
that
issues
out
with the
first,
liver,
and
cause
then-
issues with the kidneys, blood can be too thick, multiple other things, but that's when it goes above a significant range. So what we see is a lot of times historically people were having low testosterone that could have been replaced but not doing it for fear of prostate-related issues, and that's probably a little bit overblown. So the long and short of it is that, it's not great to have extremely low values of testosterone, and that there's really not much of a risk of causing prostate cancer development just by replacing it and getting back to normal levels.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
I know that I've heard that through the years.
Absolutely.
It's always been a fear of mine, like, okay, I want to keep this, I want to try to keep it, but like,
Yeah. I think it's funny. It's one of those things that I think most people historically have thought of that as being a huge negative, and all of the data coming out recently has helped us kind of shift our thought on that.
I'm using your scissors.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So this is herb scissors. It just makes it a little bit easier to cut up your herbs in a uniform way. And these green onions, also known as scallions, I encourage you to store them in a jar of water, because when you put them back in, they'll resprout, and you'll have green onions, like 2 cycles at least of green onions. You just like rinse the water, or change the water if it starts getting cloudy. But you could also put it in a pot, so that is helpful too. And we're going to get a picture real quick of us with our. Yeah. So.
I did so much hard work for it.
Okay.
Awesome.
I didn't want to mention the blood. My friend went on a cruise. When he came back, the next day when he saw blood in his urine, he went immediately to the doctor. He had 3rd stage already. What happened there that it progressed? So can you get it before then, or is there a screening for bladder?
Yeah, so so visible blood in the urine. It sounds like there's microscopic blood in the urine that you can test for on just a regular urinalysis that you do whenever you go into the doctor's office and give a urine sample. And then there's gross hematuria, which is basically visible blood that you see when you urinate. Microscopic hematuria, when it's present only on that, that's usually a sign that there's potentially something there, which is why we test for it. When it's got to the point where it's visible blood and related to bladder cancer, it could be that whatever there has just gotten a little bit more advanced. So I bet you your friend, if he had tests done before that with a urine check, it may have been something that might have picked up on it before. The challenge is that bladder cancer, prostate cancer is one of those, the big thing because we see it so much. We talk about prostate cancer a lot just because it's so much more diagnosed. Bladder cancer is a significantly more deadly disease than what prostate cancer is. It's a kind of a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type situation. Many bladder cancers are very, very low grade, and there's something that we could just observe and do nothing about. But in their aggressive forms, they're one of the most aggressive cancers we deal with. And what your friend experienced is something that unfortunately we see every so often. By the time you have visible symptoms that are there, it may potentially have spread to other organs already, or it may be more aggressive locally. Yeah. So I think in terms of evaluating and how that may have been caught earlier, potentially a urine check may have been, but even in those cases, sometimes it still shows up when it's too late.
Well, my cousin has prostate cancer, and they did the 5 weeks of radiation or whatever, and now they found a tumor in the thyroid, but they don't think it's cancer, and now he has to have that removed next month.
Okay.
One
what is the likelihood of the relation? Probably not a whole lot. Prostate can go to a lot of places, but usually the landing zone is typically not the thyroid associated with that. Yeah, usually the pelvic lymph nodes, the axial skeleton, the spine, the hips, things like that. More.
One does not have to is not related to the other.
I don't think so. Not in that case, no.
Started, we were talking earlier about career exposure. In the 1970s on the aircraft carrier Saratoga, we had jet fuel in the drinking water.
Yeah.
Sunshine,
Yeah.
when you took a shower, that sort of thing.
Huh.
That's where I established my relationship with my urologist.
Gotcha.
Checking for that, and then eventually something else was found.
Okay, yeah. And there are a lot of occupational exposures. I mean, especially through the military and back in the 60s and the 70s and all that. We're seeing so many more things nowadays, and they're real. I mean, there's associations.
Is it too spicy or just enough? Good. I love spice, so I'm like, I don't know if I'm burning you out or what. Isn't it good?
Well, and one of the things I think you were just touching on there, and Allison talks about this a lot, is inflammation. And so is that something that you're starting to talk about with your patients? It's become one of those other buzzwords too, helping patients focus on lower inflammation diets, lower inflammatory?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess you'll go into more of the diet aspect of it as well. But, again, and under the myriad of things that urologists deal with, one of the things that probably affects younger guys more often than others is prostatitis, so inflammation of the prostate. It is super duper common. Some people go through multiple episodes per year, but generally, whenever I have patients who have one episode, it could be just inflammation associated with other things. Could be compression of the prostate from the bicycle seats, things like that. But there are many people who develop chronic issues with it, so it becomes one of those situations that we deal with almost like a diabetes or a high blood pressure type situation. And within the treatment paradigm to help prevent the episodes, absolutely, anti-inflammatory diets are very, very helpful. Yeah.
And then, and just talking about risk factors and preventive, we've talked about the nutrition piece of it, but you talked about genetics. I mean, I think really, screening is probably the most important thing, right? When you hear about these things. I mean, of course, nutrition and lifestyle and those things are helpful, but when you're talking about the genetic component, is it just really stressing home the importance of screenings?
So screening is super important. I mean, I think guys in general, we're kind of scared to go into docs and see people, and I'm probably the poster child for that. I haven't been to my PCP in probably long enough that if he saw me on this, he'd be like, where are you? But it is important. Anything that we deal with, catching it early, obviously changes and alters the disease process so much.
I was listening to a dietitian interview a urologist about prostate health on my way in here today, and he was saying how when men die, typically they will find an autopsy tumors, but it's just in the prostate, but it doesn't necessarily form into cancer. They likely die of heart disease or something else before that ever possibly would happen. Is that true?
It is. I mean, so I think the current rates are that if every man was to live to like 120, every single person would have prostate cancer.
Yeah.
It's just a high turnover organ, the gland, and it continuously grows throughout life. It's kind of it's a little bit of a cruel joke because outside of reproductive years, it doesn't have any role in your body almost whatsoever.
Right.
So yeah, there are, as time goes by, the challenge is that the same thing I mentioned before about bladder cancer being Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Prostate cancer kind of has that. There's a significant number of prostate cancers that are very, very indolent. And as a result, that I mentioned before, the PSA screening issue and us potentially not screening as much as we did because we were over-treating a lot of guys who had those indolent cancers. So it's a lot about finding which one of those. So many of those things that are found in autopsy tend to be the indolent Gleason 6s, the one low grades that are not really worrisome. But the problem is if you don't know what you're dealing with, it's hard to determine if it's going to be the indolent one or the more aggressive. And the only way to know what you're dealing with is screening.
Yeah. And one good plug for diet, anti-inflammatory diet. It's going to help prevent disease. It's going to help prevent heart disease, diabetes, inflammatory issues, prostate cancer, multitude of cancers. So really trying to focus on adding in. I just counted how many plants and I forgot.
I was just about to ask you. Now, all right.
Hold on. I don't want to lie. But incorporating as many plants. What I like to tell my clients when they sit down to the table to eat, don't just look at your meal. Think about what else can I add to this to enhance the nutritional quality of it. And if you're focusing on adding more plants and vegetables and things to your diet, the side effect is likely going to be some weight loss. So if that's your goal, that's great, So adding in more veggies whenever possible is going to be huge, and that's where your fiber is coming from as well. So, all right, let me count.
All right, she's going to do some math.
What are we not gonna eat meat at all? Because my girlfriend says if you're O positive, you should eat this much meat a week. If you're A positive, you should not eat fish, or you should eat fish.
Yeah.
What are we eliminating?
13,
Should
14,
we eat any
15.
meat at all?
So, I mean, I think you're referring to
The
the eating for your blood
question
type. Oh, yeah, sorry. The question is, in terms of, is meat in your diet good, and is there ways of kind of honing it in per the person? So, I think you're referring to the eating for your blood type, which I'm actually curious what your take on is on that.
I don't believe in it.
Yeah, I don't believe in it either.
I don't believe in it at all.
I love meat. I'm never going to cut that out of my diet. It's part of, I would say, I mean, there's everything in moderation. I think one of the most important things whenever we discuss things with patients about how do you prevent whatever disease state, it's all just moderation. So to give you an example, kidney stones. We talked about this a little bit. The most common type of kidney stone you can get is something called a calcium oxalate stone. We're in the Stone Belt, the southern eastern part of the U.S. We see more kidney stones than almost anywhere else in the entire country and almost anywhere else in the entire world. Huh. And most of those stones are calcium oxalate stones, which are partially due to dehydration. But the reason I said the word oxalate is basically calcium in the urine is usually soluble. Oxalate that you get from your diet binds the calcium, turns it from a soluble thing into something that is a crystal, and it forms a stone. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So one of the big things we tell patients who form stones a lot is limit the amount of oxalate in their diet. Problem is oxalate is present in a significant amount of good things, green leafy vegetables, a lot of healthy things that you want to have in your diet. So whenever I tell people to cut back on that, the major game there is everything in moderation. Same thing with meat. There are many benefits to animal proteins associated with that, but there are also negatives if you're having something way too much. So everything in moderation. I don't think it's ever a point where going one way too much is going to be better.
All right, before Allison forgets, how many?
21 just in today's meal.
Wow.
Yeah. More than half. Yeah.
I'm gonna list them all right now.
If you want me to. It's all on the ingredient list. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna wrap up for our at-home audience here real quick. So thank you to Allison, thank you to Dr. Emtaj. So, kind of, what's your last thoughts? If one piece of advice people watching today for prostate health or overall health, what's your takeaway you give?
General stuff is, prevention is obviously the most important thing for all of it. So getting out there, getting screened, seeing your doctor frequently, asking the questions that you think may be dumb are super important because there's no such thing as dumb questions, and you can only get an answer if you ask whatever it is. I think it's also, this for me is a learning experience. I think a lot of the intangibles to our health are very important. A lot of those things we can take into our own control. So diet is probably one of the biggest ones. So this is going to spur me on to do a little bit better on my home. Yeah.
Yeah, eat more plants.
Allison, that's your takeaway. Eat more.
Yeah, eat more plants.
Allison, we have people in here that had never had tofu before. So.
Wait, who hasn't had tofu? So what do you think? Really?
Two thumbs up for those you can't see.
That goes to try something different. Well, tofu is so bland, and so it's all about the sauce. Yeah. Yeah, and the baking and the texture of it. Yeah. So and that's why try new things. And I encourage you I eat meat, but I am a plant-forward dietitian, and I like to incorporate more plants, so I crowd out the meat as much as possible with plant proteins. And but I like to tell people go to a vegetarian restaurant and maybe try some of this stuff because you won't know unless you try it. And you're probably not going to go home and make it yourself,
What are the restaurants that you're comfortable with?
I've tried Ethos.
Ethos just closed.
Oh,
Close, yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. Nourish Coffee Bar and Kitchen has tofu on its menu right here in the Center for Health and Wellbeing.
Yeah.
I would say, too, I'll jump into it. A lot of Indian restaurants are vegetarian,
Right.
and they're great. You do still have to be careful sometimes with the butter, but Woodlands on Orange Blossom Trail is a great vegetarian Indian restaurant.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Also, some restaurants may have one tofu dish on the menu, like Chipotle. They have sofritas, and they taste absolutely delicious, and it's made with tofu. So, and sometimes I'll go and get half meat, half the sofritas. So I'm just cutting down the animal protein. And studies show if you replace half your animal protein with plant protein, it helps reduce your blood pressure. So I'm like, there's many different positives for adding in more plant-based proteins. And edamame, tofu, the miso, the garbanzo beans, lentils, legumes, those are all plant-based proteins.
What is tofu from?
Soybean.
Soybean.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We've got a tofu press, and we've been really trying to make our tofu taste good.
Yeah.
We're struggling.
It's all about the sauce.
Because also, you get it all dry, but then it has no flavor, so then when you get the flavor, it gets soft again.
I know. You get it dry, and then but it's going to get soft, but it's sucking in that marinade that you're flavoring it with, so that flavor is going to be infused into the tofu. I would just bake it versus doing it on the skillet, because it's going to break apart if you do it on the skillet. But if you're making a tofu scramble, you want it to be broken up like that. So yeah, and like when I saw this recipe, I was inspired by it. I did a couple of changes, and one of the main changes is baking it instead of putting it on the saucepan, because I'm like, I'm not going to deal with that. Like, and
Just like spray it.
I sprayed it with the olive oil spray. You could do avocado oil spray and bake it. I've also baked it with, because some physicians are like, no oil whatsoever. Some are like, oil is healthy if it's omega-3 fatty acid oil. So I did the last vegan class, I did no oil at all, and it turned out fine as well. I like a little bit extra crisp on mine, so
You got something like tamari.
it would soak into the tofu and the flavor would be infused.
And I haven't tried it yet in my air fryer, but that's my next, because I
Yes,
think the air
yes.
fryer would probably crisp it up really good.
Yep.
Because we do chicken wings in the air fryer. They get
Yeah,
really crispy,
exactly.
but with no breading on them, you know.
Right,
So I
right.
think the tofu would do the same thing.
Yeah, they had BOGO, I'm a BOGO girl, at Publix, some flavored tofu. And I'm like, I'll get that. And so I threw that in the air fryer, and it was delicious.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, well, thank you to both of you. Thank you so much for your time. And
you
we'll
guys.
leave the chat room up for a couple more minutes to do the survey. But thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.